TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledges to step up Jerusalem's war on terror. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian pledges support for all states and entities which battle Israel as he concludes an official tour of the Levant, including Lebanon, Syria and Turkey. Russia highlights that its economic relations with the Arab world are on an upward trajectory. Israel is not decelerating its war on terror. To the contrary, as part of Operation Wadesbreaker, IDF, ISA or Shin Bet and Border Police Special Operations units conducted counterterrorism activities throughout the West Bank districts of Judea and Samaria overnight, during which 7 suspected terror operatives were successfully apprehended. Moreover, multiple weapons and munitions were uncovered and confiscated. Separately, IDF forces provided security to a group of Jewish worshippers who sought to pray at the tomb of Joseph, son of Jacob, who is mentioned in the biblical book of Genesis. During the course of the visit to the tomb, exchanges of fire were reported between Palestinian militants and Israeli troops, while Palestinian rioters hurled stones, Molotov cocktails, and improvised explosive devices. And while no injuries were reported among the Israeli worshippers and troops, the IDF spokesperson's unit confirmed that hits among the Palestinian attackers were identified. Meanwhile, on the first day after assuming command of the Israel Defense Forces, Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzl Levy visited the IDF Central Command headquarters, where he held an extensive situation assessment in all that relates to the Judea, Samaria, and Jordan Valley regions. In parallel, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, accompanied by Jerusalem's National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi and ISA Director Ronen Bar, visited the ISA Samaria Division, where he received a wide-ranging intelligence and operational briefing on ISA operations in all sectors, with emphasis on aggressive counterterrorism operations in the Samaria district.
אני מסיים עכשיו ביקור בבסיס של השב"כ. יצא לי להתרשם עמוקות מהטכנולוגיה, מהאנשים, מהשיטות, בעיקר מהפעולות שמסכלות מאות פיגועים ומצילות חייהם של רבים במדינת ישראל. אני מלא הערכה על כך. אני מבקש גם לציין דבר נוסף. ישראל לא מפסיקה במאמציה להשיב את אברה מנגיסטו ושאר שבוינו ונעדרנו. אתמול קיבלנו אישור נוסף למה שידענו כל הזמן, שאברה חי. מדובר באדם צעיר, לא בקו הבריאות, והאחריות לגורלו רובצת כולה על חמאס.
The letter remarked by Netanyahu relates to a video which the Islamist Hamas organization published of its Israeli captive, Avira Mengistu, on the day in which the IDF held a change of command of its Chief of General Staff.
אני אסי אברהם מנגיסטו, עד מתי אני נמצא פה? בשביעי אני בחזרה. אחרי השנות, עוד מהקבע. איפה היא מדינת עם ישראל? מגורלנו.
It is important to know that Avira Mengistu, who reportedly crossed into Gaza after several failed attempts, was previously diagnosed as suffering from mental illness. And while Avira's fate was unknown since Hamas captured him, his brother highlighted that they are now more than ever hopeful that Avira will be returned to them safe and sound.
אנחנו ברגשות מעורבים. לצערי 8.5 שנים שלא ידענו מה איתו, מה מצבו הנפשי והגופני, והיום לשמחתי חמאס מודה שהוא מחזיק באזרח חף מפשע, ואני חושב שבאמת הוא אחראי לגורלו, ואנחנו מקווים שבאמת הוא יחזור אלינו בריא שלם.
It is important to know that by publishing the video, Hamas, an internationally recognized terror group, sought to demoralize the Israeli public while in tandem signaling the new Israeli government in Jerusalem that it is willing to reinvigorate negotiations on a potential prisoner swap. Meanwhile, senior Egyptian intelligence officials reportedly informed Hamas that Cairo is willing to revive its mediation efforts to realize a plausible prisoners exchange deal once the new Israeli government appoints a new coordinator who will be mandated to deal with the sensitive matter. In other regional news, the Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian concluded an official tour of the Levant during which he initially traveled to Lebanon, where he met with the Lebanese caretaker government, which Tehran's Lebanese proxy Hezbollah effectively controls. Moreover, Tehran's top diplomat also met with the leaders of the Islamic Republic's proxies in Lebanon and the Palestinian-controlled territories, respectively, including Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah and Palestinian Islamic Jihad Secretary General Ziad al-Nahala, during which discussion focused on military preparations and activities which are directed against Israel. Moreover, during a press conference in Beirut, Foreign Minister Amir-Abdollahian proclaimed that the Islamic Republic of Iran will continue supporting the Islamic resistance in Lebanon and Palestine, as he put it, and that Tehran considers Lebanon's security as important as Iran's and the region's security, effectively insinuating that any attack on Iran would also draw Lebanon into war. Tehran's top diplomat, whose trip to Beirut was followed by a trip to Damascus, voiced Iran's pleasure in seeing proactive efforts by Turkey to normalize its relations via Russian mediation with Syria.
ما از گفتگوهای سوری و ترکی گفتگوهای به عمل آمده بین مقامات سوریه و ترکیه خرسندیم و از مسیر گفتگو و مذاکره برای حل مشکلات این دو کشور استقبال می‌کنیم.
Despite Iran's expressed hope to see Turkey and Syria normalize their relations, Damascus highlighted during the visit of Tehran's top diplomat that it would not accept any rapprochement with its northern neighbor unless it removes all of its troops from Syrian soil.
لأنه لا يمكن للحديث أن ينجح حول إقامة علاقات طبيعية دون إنهاء الاحتلال ودون إنهاء الإرهاب ودون إعادة العلاقات إلى المبادئ التي بنيت عليها أصلا. اللقاء بين سيادة الرئيس بشار الأسد والقيادة التركية يعتمد على إزالة أسباب التي أدت إلى هذا الوضع وإلى الخلافات التي حلت مكان التوافقات التي بنيت عليها العلاقات السورية التركية سابقا.
It is important to highlight that while Iran does play a role in efforts to normalize relations between Turkey and Syria because of its own interests in the latter, which include Tehran's keen efforts to protect its own troops and Shiite proxies, the Islamic Republic's mediation role is secondary to that of Russia. While Iran regards Syria as a corridor to the Mediterranean Sea and a territory from which to confront Israel, among others, Moscow's interests are broader, regarding Damascus as Russia's gateway to Africa and the Arab world, which to date generally refuse Western sanctions against Russia over the war in Ukraine.
У нас развиваются отношения с арабским миром по восходящей. Конечно, мы тоже должны учитывать в торгово-экономических связях прежде всего незаконные санкции, вот эту вот агонию, которую сейчас мы наблюдаем со стороны тех, кто руководит международной валютно-финансовой системой. Мы выстраиваем новые цепочки поставок, которые защищены от этих колонизаторов. Переходим все больше и больше к расчетам в национальных валютах.
Foreign Minister Lavrov further highlighted that past agreements between Turkey and Russia regarding Islamist terror groups operating in Syria's northwestern Idlib governorate must be implemented. In tandem, Lavrov stressed that Moscow does understand Ankara's frustration regarding Kurdish militants, which Turkey regards as terrorists, and which are operating under the US-led Operation Inherent Resolve that continues to battle the Islamic State in both Syria and Iraq.
Одна из главных проблем – это Идлиб, чтобы в Идлибе все-таки были выполнены договоренности о недопустимости сохранения там террористов. Еще северо-восток, да, там нужно налаживать контакты между правительством и курдами. Мы понимаем озабоченности турецких наших коллег этой проблемы, понимаем их раздражение тем, что США, наоборот, хотят курдов там использовать для того, чтобы, во-первых, создавать квазигосударство на востоке Сирии, а во-вторых, чтобы эти курды выполняли поручения Вашингтона.
Turning to Ankara, where Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian concluded his regional tour last night, during which extensive talks were held with his Turkish counterpart over matters of regional security, with chief focus on both Iraq and Syria. It is worth noting that while the Iranian top diplomat was scheduled to travel to Moscow following his trip to Ankara, the trip to Russia has been postponed for reasons which have not yet been unveiled. Thank you for watching us. I would like to start by thanking our Heavenly Father and personally congratulating all of you, our TV7 family of supporters, staff, and Malti and Milia Oyaris in particular, as today's broadcast of TV7 Israel News constitutes episode number 3000, substantive milestone indeed. If you're blessed by TV7 Israel News, I'd like to encourage you to join our family of supporters by making a financial contribution that will help us both sustain and develop our ongoing operations. Separately, I would like to encourage you to persist with prayer for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hesson, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, I'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.